So when does the board want to, and this is probably a good time, Madam Chair, to discuss the timeline, and then I can have a better idea of how we.
And Andrew, just so I'm clear on what you're talking about, timeline. We've boiled this down and talked about premium contribution as the largest single lever that the Board of Selectmen have control over, as opposed to the Retirement Board or the state legislature. And so we've heard obviously from Kathy about the huge impact it has if we can get to that 50% level over some period of time and then channel it all back in. So it seems to me for the board to simplify this, it's really over what period of time do we want to get to the 50, it's actually 51%, over what period of time do we want to get to that? Clearly now we're not going to impose it year one. So the question is, what is the phase-in period? Is it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? What's the pleasure of the board as far as phase-in? That's one. Secondarily and related is what Ken talks about, which is the mitigation aspect. We've heard a lot of feedback about the impact this would have, particularly on lower income pension recipients. And the question is, it sounds like Ken has had experience working with this, and there are methodologies and abilities to do that, to provide that type of subsidy to ease the landing of this policy change. And the third part is, and maybe John Foskett, since don't want to waste, he's here, might as well use it, is the advantage of having a board policy that we are moving to a 51% policy. Now, the mitigation is different, right? That softens the impact. But to say we have a 51% policy and establishing that policy now helps us have a better standing that the state legislature does move on this and tries to freeze retiree contributions at whatever level there were. We would have better standing and better argument legally to say, well, no, we moved to this policy prior to any type of moratorium.
Yeah, by the way, you're saying 51%, it's actually 49%.
49.
Right, and that's because Section 9A, had you adopted that, is 50. Section 9E, which the town did adopt, says an additional or subsidiary rate. So you can get, technically, you can get down to up to 49.99999, which means 49.
Yeah.
And again, just to focus narrowly on the point Bob raised, if the town is going to exercise its authority to some level under Section 9E, if there's any moves afoot in the legislature to change that section or to do something with it, you're in a better position if you've acted sooner rather than later.
Understood.
I think a point that.
You said
Yes.
if there are moves in play by the legislature, can you please elaborate on that, John?
Sure. If, for example, the legislature were to enact an amendment to Section 9E that somehow changed the rules, if you've acted before that happens, you're in a better position than if you wait and see what happens.
So is there pending legislation on this? And if so, when will it be heard?
There was a bill filed last summer. It was last dealt with in September at a committee hearing, which would have frozen certain rates under Section 9E. The last I checked, that's gone nowhere. But that doesn't mean that something else might not be filed.
Right.
Well, there's also a precedent a couple of years ago where during the state budget process, simply as an amendment to the budget, not a separate bill, they put in a moratorium freezing retiree premium contributions for another 2 years.
Right.
So I think
Couple of paths.
yes. So I think there's really two or really three issues. One, establishing the board's policy at the 50%, 49.99% level. Two, deciding as a board over what period of time we would implement that, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever that may be. And then working with Ken to find out how do you mitigate impact on those most affected, those with the lowest incomes. And I think Ken has experience working with that methodology. To me, that's where we are at. All the other stuff in the OPEB reports are interesting, and there's things we can work on. There was one other one, though, that John pointed out, which is the town does have an ability to have a continuing service requirement, which means you only get OPEB benefits if you retire from the town. You may have earned the benefit by putting in your by your 10 years of service, what have you, but it's only if you are here at the time of your retirement would the OPEB benefit kick in.
And there's actually, as I pointed out, there's a legal question about that.
Okay.
That's an undecided issue, but there is that possibility. It
But the
hasn't-
language does show that
There's language in the statute which would be consistent with that result.
Yep.
But as I have to point out as a lawyer,
Yes,
that has only been interpreted by me. And
fair enough.
That and 75 cents to get you a newspaper.
So just to clarify, Bob, you mentioned about the board voting on a policy to
Mhm.
bring contributions to the 49, 51%, whichever it is.
Mhm.
You're talking about specifically for retirees and/or survivor.
No, the survivors are separate. I think we could leave the survivors out of this for now and leave it, the facts are right now, we have a surviving spouse benefit policy that has never been approved at town meeting. We've been subsidizing surviving spouses, and we never got the requisite town meeting.
No, I just want to understand
So,
what your
but-
statement
But no,
alluded to.
what I would think we focus on is not on the surviving spouses. Clearly, nobody had any interest in working with existing surviving spouses. I think we'd grandfather them anyways. Future surviving spouses, I think, is a topic for Phase 2 of OPEB reform that we could talk about and maybe, have conversations with. But it really is just about the active retirees, both non-Medicare and Medicare. So it wouldn't affect the surviving spouses.
Okay.
Get a couple questions. John, I'm sorry, Ken, do people pay more for Medicare Part B based upon their income?
Yeah, there are IRMA adjustments. It's actually, Dan, two pieces. It's a Part B premium. So right now, it's $105 for the existing retiree population. New Social Security participants, we're paying $121, are those folks that don't have enough in their system to pay the bill out of the Social Security check. It's actually a Part D income-related monthly adjustment as well. So we could have some high-income retirees that are getting surcharged. That is absolutely possible. Medicare reports that less than 5% of all retirees actually receive a surcharge.
Less than 5%?
But what can trigger that is retiree, home sale, capital gains, could have a temporary income
Income
adjustment.
increase for that
Yeah,
year?
then it would revert back to the base once income gets underneath the $87,000 level.
Okay. Another question is on excuse me, just lost it.
Drop penalty
That's
payments.
okay, it'll come back.
No, I get it. Came back to me, thanks. Another question was on the mitigation fund.
Sure.
So procedurally, how that would happen is there would be a line item budget amount for health insurance that would represent the roughly 50%, 49% town allocation. Then there would have to be another line item in the budget that would be for providing the mitigation funds to help mitigate the impact of that increase. So in theory, what's going on there is you're putting it to town meeting. So town meeting could choose not to fund that mitigation line item. Is that a kind of correct assumption?
Right, so the funding of any mitigation fund would require a town meeting appropriation
Annually.
annually.
And town meeting might not vote for it.
Right. And,
Release of litigation.
to Bob's point about the retiree spouses, so that's something that, that the town's been providing that benefit.
No one's suggesting we change it.
Right. And I'm just saying we should probably clean that up, and take a town meeting vote to support it, recommend the support for existing retirees. So that's, something that we have to look at, I think.
I think with the bigger reform achieved, the moving to the 50% level over a planned path, I think allows you the freedom to now start looking at the edges like that and
Right.
providing that without the cost. And, and keep in mind...
I'm not recommending this town meeting.
No, I understand. I do want to say something, though, about the retiree premium cost. Even if you go to 50% for retiree premiums for the Medicare plans, the annual premium for retirees would be about $1,900, $1,940. We've heard a lot of talk about looking out for retirees. We also need to look out for the retirees in the rest of the town. We have a lot more retirees that did not retire from the town school. They have to pay, less than 7% of them on average have any type of retiree health insurance. So if a town or school retiree is living next to a retiree who did not retire from the town school, most likely that retiree is going to Blue Cross Blue Shield, buying Medex Bronze at a cost of $3,700 a year for benefits that aren't nearly as good as what the town offers. So just to be clear, even if you go to the 50% level for Medicare retirees, it is still a very good benefit.
So where does the board want to go from here? This is the first I heard about a proposed Thursday meeting. I'm certainly not available.
I'm not either.
No, it's the first time I said it.
Right.
Oh,
So how would
Yeah.
you have heard about it?
Yeah.
I just suggested, how do we keep, because we don't have a meeting scheduled for next week, I don't
Correct.
think. So
Next week is vacation week.
Next week's school vacation, our next regularly scheduled board of selectmen
We've had
meeting is on
meetings.
the 25th.
Okay.
Right. So,
Doesn't mean we can't have a meeting.
yeah. Andrew, you could work up something for the next Board of Selectmen meeting that would be on the 25th.
Certainly.
That we've been talking about, which is options for moving to the policy, understanding what the mitigation might look like, right? And I do, I just want to say this, I've been pushing, this is what I was afraid of, and why I've been saying since January that this board should have been talking and deliberating this is, I don't want to hear we're out of time. I don't want to hear that, we don't have now time to deliberate this because we waited until March 31st. We have all this data. This is the end of a 2-year process. It doesn't take much to consolidate and boil this down to the decision points that this board can control. And I think with the help of the town manager and our advisors, we can get this in front of us and make decisions on OPEB.
With all due respect, we had a forum, was it last week, dedicated to this issue for 2 hours at Doherty Memorial. We tonight have devoted over an hour, so I would hardly say that we are not moving right along, discussing this and fleshing out what we can and can't do, Bob.
And I'm just saying that that's fine, but I'm saying that the board needs to be able to make the time to act on this now, as
And we
opposed to...
have and we will.
And because, well, this does have implications for this year's town meeting, because any type of OPEB reform comes on the health insurance line item. So any type of, if we move, for example, to a 65% premium contribution, that has a direct impact on this year's budget.
So we're going to try to get this solved before this town meeting?
Well, Paul, we've been talking about this for 2 years.
That was a question.
And
Yes,
I think phase one,
Let's look at the,
phase one should become,
we
I mean,
definitely should look at the
really-
calendar. We definitely should look at the calendar, I think, while we're talking about it now. And that's why I suggested another meeting. I don't care when the meeting is. The point is that, what does this look like? Otherwise, we could be talking about this forever.
this is on our list of strategic priorities.
So-
I mean,
Absolutely, and we have a lot of things on our strategic priorities, and I've already told you that it's going to be on our agenda for April 25th.
I'm really uncomfortable voting on any policies or anything like this until we really nail down the impacts, okay? I mean, we just have to nail those things down. I'm very happy moving forward as quickly as we can, but we have to really understand impacts. That's all I'm saying.
So what do
I
we
don't know if
need-
that's gonna happen.
What is it, could we
What do
just
we need
clarify?
from Andrew?
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you mean by impacts?
Specific impacts, as we're talking, I'm thinking, well, if we go to 49%, that is an additional cost to a retiree, but you also have other kinds of costs, which are co-pays and other, what is the real cost to a retiree? I don't, we have to understand that. What is the real cost to an average retiree? I don't know what that is yet.
As a result, so you're asking about any plan design changes.
Correct.
What is that contributing to us?
Right, because it's not just the cost of
We're talking
additional
about changing
premium.
just premium contributions,
This-
not
the
plan
plan
design.
design is.
Plan
what the
design's
active
already
employees-
changed.
We
All
already
right,
did that.
but are we also not,
No plan
No,
design
no
changes.
plan design
yet.
changes, that's already,
Yeah. Doesn't change the plan.
right, Medicare plans don't
Yeah.
change.
Well, I'd certainly like to know what the impact is to the individuals that we are talking about, from the lowest impact to the highest impact. The numbers of people. I'd like to see that all broken out.
Could I just say something on that, though? Because the more we press down on...
These are just not numbers. We're talking about people here, Bob.
I understand it's people, but these are this is a subset of retirees. What about the retirees in the rest of the town who don't have any of this? We have to look out for them, too, because their taxes are affected by this. This is a massive issue. We have to look out for that. The impact, first of all, is shown. We have charts. I just distributed one that shows the impact for each plan. When you get down to showing the impact on each retiree, now you have an issue with disclosure issues, where we can go through the pension lists, which are public, And we explored mapping up which plan they're in to show the premium, to show the actual impact, the human cost for it, and you just can't do it. There's some privacy issues in boiling it down to that.
So
which
you're
is-
telling me you can't give me a list of 5 people it's going to affect this much, 6 people this much? I'm not looking for names, I'm looking for any personal information, I'm looking for the data.
We can
I think
provide
the data, yeah, he's definitely, I think this looks like this, I don't know if the.
Well, that
rating
was
is
just
correct.
presented
No, I know.
tonight,
I'm
so
just
I
look-
haven't had a chance to evaluate it yet.
No, but I'm just asking, does that give the data that we're looking for? This type of thing?
It paints some of the pictures, so just to recap, what I'll come back with and provide on the 25th, if that's when the board wants to take this up, mitigation on impacts, because I think the actuarial data we have, it's available.
Right.
So I think we're good there. But we'll talk about mitigation options and individual, impact to individuals by class, if you will, when I say class. Medicare eligible, non-Medicare eligible.
Okay, yes,
Retirees.
I would like to see that.
So also mitigation options, meaning if we phase it in over a number of years, is that what you're saying?
Right, so I'm.
So we're not going to 49% immediately,
No.
going 10% less,
I mean,
20%
I'm
less,
happy to
whatever
show
it might
what
be.
3, 5, 7, 9,
Right.
however
Right, right.
many years.
Those
I
are the
mean,
kinds
we can
of things we
extrapolate.
need to see.
If we do a 3, a 5, and a 7, we can extrapolate from there.
Right,
I get it.
exactly.
Right,
Any interval is.
And do,
Yep.
and, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we have all the
What are they-
raw
what are they-
data, which is good, right, that's,
Correct.
you
Okay,
have
so
everything you
you,
need.
So just as a point, I mean, Bob, you had said, you're thinking about the retirees in town that don't have health insurance and how, you're thinking about them as almost like a justification, I'll say, to change the health insurance, change the benefits for current for retirees. When in actuality, this isn't gonna be any tax savings for anybody, because the discussion is continue to tax those dollars and apply them to OPEB. So this isn't going to save any taxpayer anything on their tax bill.
Sure it will.
It's just going to.
No, sure it will,
It's going to hit
because,
their liability.
no, because to the
It's a
extent
lot
you
of
are
money.
taking, yeah, that's a lot of money. To the extent you channel this, when you get to
We're still going to tax it 2.5%.
You're still going to tax that, but to the extent it takes pressure off the operating budget to fund OPEB. We are funding OPEB now out of tax dollars. This is taking $1.3 million out of the system and funding OPEB.
So your
So there's an
proposal then
opportu-
is don't use any of the other funding plan, just this.
No, we're.
Just this
My proposal would be to
50%
use the
savings, so to
town
speak.
manager's funding plan, which is the 0.5% of budget, which we voted as policy.
Right.
Add on the savings that come out of these reforms, not towards any other expenditures, but back into OPEB to secure the system. And that alone insulates the budget. I mean, you want to insulate the school and town budgets from future fluctuations, get a self-funding mechanism going towards the OPEB trust fund to amortize that. Otherwise, there's going to be more and more pressure on
So-
the operating budget.
Right, but
Do it in D.
you're talking about still continuing the town manager's
Yes.
proposal.
Yes, that's right.
So still pulling money out of the operating budget, so to speak.
At half a percent of the
Yep,
budget.
at half a percent, and also taking these, additional funds and
Yes.
funneling that toward OPEB.
That's exactly right.
So your proposal, that's what your proposal included as well, is all that, Kathy?
Not proposal, scenario.
Is your scenario?
Yeah.
Scenario.
Our cost of your
Schedule
proposal.
B.
So maybe I'm slow, maybe I'm missing it then. So how is it that's not saving, how is that's alleviating impact to the taxpayer? Because we're still increasing the OPEB payment every year by a percentage of the budget, plus we're taking those savings associated with increasing the premium to 50%, and we're funneling that toward OPEB. What we're doing is we're paying down that long-term liability, but it doesn't free up any funds to relieve
But
the
what's
tax
happening,
burden
what's
on-
happening now
on-
without reform? Without reform.
Right, no, the liability continues to
Well,
grow.
not only does liability grow,
Right.
but
I
there's
recognize that,
but
yeah.
the source of funding is where? It's the finance committee's looking at $500,000 in health insurance savings, meaning
Right.
there will be a constant
Right,
grab
it's a-
for taxpayer dollars to go towards OPEB unless we can reform the system and channel
So-
the funds back
so
into the
So
system.
the savings that you're saying will exist will be the fact that there won't be any additional constant grab for dollars that could go toward OPEB because of the fact that we're utilizing the board's policy, which is supporting the town manager's recommendation, as well as the 50% from
It has to be,
savings.
we've talked
So
about a
it's-
shared effort, which is,
It's not a huge it's not a significant impact, positive impact for the retirees that are out there. It's
I'm not
more
sure-
of
I'm
a-
not
sorry,
sure it
wait a minute, I
supports the
think you're-
justification.
It's more of a, it's
think
more of a
you're confusing
justification.
something, though.
It's more of
It
a, it's
doesn't
more of a
support it.
justification that everyone else is
No, I think
hurting,
you're-
so let's
You know what, I'm
share
gonna,
the burden.
I'm gonna
If I
call
could,
the
Mayor, just-
discussion.
If I could, just one
One
response.
last comment.
I need to understand.
I understand, and I want to explain to it. My reference to the other retirees in town, I mean, town's full retirees are one population, but we have, the Council on Aging will tell you, we've got, what, almost 6,000 people over the age of 65 in town. It was some big number, and it's a growing number. I comment on that in terms of fairness, not about the budget. It's the equity issue. We've heard a lot of feedback and comments from retirees and employees talking about the fairness
Right,
of
so
raising the
it's-
premiums. And so what I'm trying to say is, what we're doing in terms of reforming this benefit is still fair. The end result will still be a great benefit.
But the
And
end-
it's going to be far better than what our other retirees in town, our other residents that we all represent. We represent those retirees as well.
Oh, I know that, I'll finish up in 1 second, Mary,
Yeah.
but, so, I understand, the fairness, the equity justification, so to speak, but, if you can maybe model out how this is gonna save the average taxpayer, the person that is retired, that is already, got a big tax bill, how this is gonna reduce their tax bill, how this is gonna save them money directly, because, you'd mentioned that, there were all these other retirees. Maybe you can model that out and share that with the board, how this will save it for our next conversation?
Yeah, I think it's already modeled in there, but we can, I think the important thing for the next meeting is to make sure, because Andrew asked for it before this meeting, I tried to get this conversation started back in January so we would have time to do this. I just hope the board takes the time. You've had enough data. We've had 2 years, 2 committees, and 3 reports. Whatever further information you want to move forward on this, please speak up so we can get it addressed. So we don't get to April 25th and yet again say, well, I'd like to see more data.
Thank you very